Hello everyone, welcome to React Advanced tutorial. In this tutorial we will talk about error boundaries, and what we will learn here, we'll see why we are using error boundaries and how to use it. The first question is why error boundaries? The first reason is it will give a better user experience to our customers, to the viewers. And it's because if we have some error for React, it will show a blank page, and blank page is not very helpful to the user, and we know that not many people will open the console and see what is the actual defect, and they cannot do anything about it. But if we have error boundaries, we can show a view to the user and we can just give them the status of the application, so they know they have to maybe refresh the application, they open a different page, or we can add some buttons so they can go to a different state of the application, which is a right state. So we can do anything about it. And also another advantage is we can log these errors. We can see how many times the user get error for our application, for the component. So that's why it's very important. We will see the demo and then we can talk about how we can implement it. Okay, here's the final product that we will see by the end of this tutorial. We have a very simple home page, and this home page has one button which is about, and it will take us to the about page. I intentionally left some error on this about page, so when we go to this page we will see some error, some JavaScript exception. But since we have error boundaries, user will see some UI friendly error on the screen. So when I click on about, you'll see that user sees something like this. And we can add some view elements to make it look nice, but this is up to you. I just added a header and something went wrong text. And in addition, we will see this log in the console. We can just send the log to our servers. Whatever we want to do with this error, we can do it here. So let's go see how we can do that. Okay, as a sample app for this tutorial, I will use this React Router app, which I demonstrated in earlier tutorials. It's a very simple app. It has two pages, a home page and about page, which I showed earlier. And you can navigate through these pages, and we can use this existing app to demonstrate error boundaries. Now let's go to the documentation of error boundaries, which is in this URL, and I will add it to the video below. And if we go to this documentation, you'll see this file, and I'll just copy paste everything here. I'll modify it later, but let's copy paste it here. And it basically says that you can use this error boundaries. Let's go back to our application. I can just zoom in. I can go to the home page. This is routes, and then we have a home page here. Yeah, right here we have a home page, and home page, it has a button which goes to the about page. So I can just simply minimize this, have this one open. So now I have home page. Now I can add the error boundaries with the code that I just copied into the src folder. I will create a new folder here, and I call it error 1R, and this is a tsx file, so I'll create a new file. I call it error boundaries.tsx. The code that we copied from the source code is JS file, but we are using JSX. We are using it at TSX, so we need some modification here. So it requires some types in order to work. So I can define the types here. I can say type and props. We need props type in order, because we have props here. If you are not familiar with the props and TypeScript, we have a tutorial, and you can watch. If it doesn't make sense for you, it's better to just go and learn how we use TypeScript. And we have props and state. If you see that we have both of them, so we need both. And state we have has error. It's a Boolean. And we have children, and it could be any type. So I can just put it here, and the type is any. And now I can pass this types here, props and state. So this way the errors will go away. And yes, see, this error went away. These are the ones that requires types as well. So and also we have to import React. Okay, so that's why I was complaining. And we need to define the type for here as well. Error could have any type, same as here and here. And what is this? It says if we have any server that we want to add the error to the server, we can define it here, but for purpose of this tutorial we can just console log. It's a console.log. So we just log the error to the console. That's all we need for this. So also we have to export this class, export, and it should be default. And that's all. That's all we need to for this. Let's now use it. Where do we use it? So we have, if you remember, for this application we have all of the routes here, and we can add these error boundaries around all of the routes. So if we get any error, it will fall back to that error boundaries. So I can just go here and just put error boundary. It auto imports for me thanks to the web store. So I add it here and save it, and now we can go back and see how it behaves. Okay, if you run the application, you will see a home page with about button, and when you click on about page, it works fine because we don't have any error. But in order to have some error, we intentionally add some errors. So I'll define a variable here. I will call it object, and this object is empty. Of course, an empty object, and I'll try to access some properties inside of this object that does not exist. So we can say props and some value from these props. So I'll get some compiler because I'm using TypeScript, and it's very nice before even rendering. But assume that you don't use TypeScript and you don't get this error here, and you run your application, and of course if you are in a dev mode it will show something like this, but for production user will not see it until they get to the page. So now if I try to navigate to about page, it will show me the view that I added for error boundaries, and also it logs the error for me here. So that's all for error boundaries and how we can do that. And if we don't add it, if I just comment out these error boundaries where we put it, you will see that user will see an empty page. So see, I removed it and users see an empty page. They do not get any feedback from the application, and that's bad. So that's why we add error boundaries. And now let's go to the error boundaries file, because we just copy pasted. We didn't talk about what we have in that file. Let's go and see it. So if I look at the file, first I define these props, nothing very special about it. Then the name of the file, it just, you can name it anything, but based on the documentation it's better to call it error boundary. We have constructor, so it initialize the state, which we have one state here has error, and this static method is responsible to turn this has error true. Whenever it gets the error, it just makes this error equal to true, and that's why we can catch it. And when it catches, it calls this function component did catch, and that's where we console log. So we can also add our own server method here to send the errors to the server, and we can do whatever with that error we want. And at the end, we have a render. So if we see we have error, we can render the error or the view that we want to show to the user. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, I use the simple header tag and I just say something wrong, but you can add much more nicer view here. But if we don't have any error, we just return the children, and by children it will be all of these routes. So you can add error boundaries on any level of the component, but I added on the top, so if any component inside of our application fails, it fall back to that view that we have. So that's all for error boundaries. So based on the documentation, error boundaries are not for the events. So if I go to the documentation, you'll see for example click events and index out of band, or all of these, it's not handling these kind of errors. So you can see about error handlers. Seems like you cannot count on it for these kind of errors. It only catch the errors for components, not the events. That's something that you should keep in mind. That's all for this tutorial. I hope you liked it. Comment and share if you want to know or learn something about React, and I will prepare it. Thank you.